Linda sat at the kitchen table, looking at her empty coffee cup. She was waiting for a talk with her husband Jim later that day. Luckily, their kids were still at the neighbor's house and would stay there overnight, so they wouldn't hear any of the arguing she knew would happen. It all began with some innocent flirting and a few lunches. How did she let things go so wrong? For over a month, Linda felt something was off, but after the last test she took, she knew she had to tell Jim. He had left early to go to the store and she was waiting for him to come back. Then, she heard the doorbell and the sound of a big truck in the driveway. Not expecting anyone except Jim, she thought someone might be lost and asking for directions. "Linda Gardner," a man asked. "Yes, I'm Linda Gardner. How can I help you?" "I have an order to pack up your things and move them to Southwest 10th Avenue. The man said, handing her a clipboard and telling 4 other men in the truck to start unloading boxes. "There must be a mistake." "I didn't place an order," she said, giving the papers back. "Yes, ma'am. I understand. The order was placed by Mr. Jim Gardner a week ago," he replied, showing her Jim's signature at the bottom of the form. "Look, my husband will be back soon, and I'm sure he can clear up this misunderstanding," Linda said. "Mrs. Gardner, I just came from your husband. 20 minutes ago, he told me to give you this envelope if you try to stop me," the man said, handing Linda a large manila envelope. "Now, if you don't mind, could you show us the master bedroom? We were only given 1 hour to complete the job." Linda opened the envelope and glanced briefly at the piece of paper. Almost in a whisper, she told the worker, "The first room at the top of the stairs on the right." The men quickly went upstairs and spent the next 40 minutes packing and carrying box after box down to the truck in the driveway. Occasionally they tried to ask Linda a question, but she remained silent, mentally somewhere else. So they just did the best they could. 50 minutes after their arrival, they announced that they were finished and ready to leave. "I'll need your signature, Mrs. Gardner," the lead worker requested. Linda scrawled something at the bottom of the paper and they left. Exactly 10 minutes later, Linda's father arrived. "Sweetheart," Ken said, looking at his daughter, stunned by what had just happened. "Jim asked me to come get you, knowing you probably wouldn't be able to drive," Ken explained. "Your mother is waiting for us and the movers will take your things. We'll keep everything in the garage for now and then we'll figure it all out," he said, leading Linda out of the house. "This can't be happening," Linda said out loud as Ken helped her into the car. "Where is Jim? If Jim were here I could fix this with him," she thought to herself. "He would listen to me, right?" Half an hour later, Jim came back to the house, but this time with a locksmith. "Change all the locks, including the garage door code," he told the locksmith. "Leave me 5 sets of keys and don't forget to lock the side garage door," he added as he stepped into his now empty house. Going upstairs, he found that the movers had done a pretty decent job considering the schedule he had given them. Looking at his watch, he realized he had only 15 minutes left before the next truck arrived. He finished packing the remaining items the movers had missed, including her cosmetics and things from the vanity in the bathroom. As he carried down the last 2 boxes, the next truck pulled up. His sister Donna came in along with the movers. "Hey sis," Jim said, hugging her. "Why don't you take the second bedroom on the left, next to the bathroom? It's a lot bigger than the guest room, and it has a walk-in closet," he told her. "We'll move the kids' things later." "No problem." "What are you going to do with Linda's car?" "Her father is supposed to pick it up tonight after he's done with the movers," Jim replied. "Let me take care of a few things. I'll swing by the office for a minute and I'll grab us some pizza for tonight," Jim said, heading to the garage. "No mushrooms," Donna replied, directing the workers on where to place everything. "Right on schedule," Jim said, checking his watch. From his car, he could see 3 of his best friends having a heated conversation with David, his wife's coworker. And David didn't look happy. About 5 minutes later, Bob, one of the 3 men, walked over to where Jim's car was parked. "He thought we were joking until I showed him my knife. I gave him 2 choices. Disappear within 24 hours or lose his manhood, and not in a hospital. I told him we'd be back tomorrow for his decision," Bob said with a smirk. "How are you holding up, man?" "I'll be better tomorrow," Jim replied sadly. "I never thought I'd have to deal with something like this, but I'll get through it. Anyway, I need to go now. See you later in my place." Jim gathered the copies of photos and receipts that the detective had left at his office on Friday afternoon, while a shocked Jim had been pacing around him. He knew what was in the envelopes and didn't even bother looking at them. They were just for the lawyer. $1,000 down the drain, he thought to himself, glancing at the bill. After leaving the envelope at his lawyer's office, Jim picked up 4 pizzas, a case of beer and headed home. He planned to get drunk one last time because after tonight he'd be a single dad and from now on he'd need to set the right example for the kids, unlike the example set by his soon-to-be ex-wife. By the time Jim returned, the truck was gone and Donna and a few of her friends were setting up her new bedroom. "Hey bro." Donna greeted Jim as he made his way upstairs. "Where's all the help you promised me?" she asked. "The guys are finishing up something for me. They should be here in about an hour. How about we take a break and grab something to eat in the meantime?" he suggested to Donna and her friends. Bob and the rest of the guys finally showed up just before 4 p.m., and by 7 p.m., everyone was sitting in Donna's room, drinking beer and enjoying the breeze from the open window. Everyone except Jim. Donna found her brother in the basement, watching old home movies. "Everyone's upstairs in my room and we've all eaten. Can I bring you something to snack on?" she asked. "Not right now, sis, but thanks for offering," Jim replied. "I just need some time alone, that's all." "Well, I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything," Donna said. She kissed her brother on the top of his head and left, gently closing the door behind her. "I never saw this coming," Jim thought to himself. "How could I have been so blind?" A little over a month ago, while paying bills online, Jim noticed a charge for an exam at the local clinic. "Honey, did you go to the doctor?" he called out to his wife, who was cooking dinner in the kitchen. "I thought I had the flu, so I went for an AB-12 shot," she called back. "Wow, their prices are high," he muttered to himself. $125 for an exam, an AB-12 shot, even with insurance. "I'll have to call them tomorrow. There must be a mistake on the bill," he thought. But there was no mistake. "Please connect me to the billing department," Jim said when he called the clinic from his office the next day. "How can I help you?" the receptionist asked. "Good morning. My wife, Linda Gardner, visited your clinic 2 weeks ago, and I think we were overcharged for her visit. She had a routine exam, an AB-12 shot," he explained. "But we received a bill for $125, and with insurance it should have been no more than $45. There was a brief pause. "Linda Gardner, correct?" the receptionist asked. "That's right," Jim replied. "She did receive AB-12 shot. But in addition to that she also had blood work and some other tests," the receptionist informed him. "Blood work and other tests? What kind of tests?" he asked. "Sorry sir, we're not allowed to disclose that kind of information," the receptionist replied. "Listen miss, Linda is my wife and I'm not asking for the test results. I just want to know what tests were done," Jim said, starting to get a little irritated. "All right, since you're her husband, it was a full blood test and a pregnancy test." "Well, thank you very much for the information. I'll pay the bill in full," Jim said after hearing the answer. Could it be said that he almost had a heart attack? Why was Linda getting a pregnancy test when Jim had a vasectomy right after their second child was born? It didn't take a genius to figure out something was wrong. Linda always had trouble with any birth control they tried, and she was strongly against abortion. "It's murder, no matter how you look at it," she used to say. So, after their surprise second daughter, Jim decided to get a vasectomy to prevent any more surprises and take abortion off the table. At least, that's what Jim had thought until now. 10 minutes later he was sitting at his desk, flipping through the phone book, looking for a private investigator. He had never doubted Linda's loyalty before, but now he wasn't sure what to believe. Jim never thought it would be so expensive to hire someone to watch his wife, but he felt like he had no other option. "She always comes home at the same time," he told the detective. "Except for the occasional team-building event, she works at the office. I need you to start right away because I know she's cheating and I need to find out who it's with." Jim's next call was to his friend Dan, who worked with his wife Linda. "Dan, it's Jim Gardner. I need a huge favor. Can we meet at Tony's Cafe after work? Around 5:30. They met, and after a few beers Jim said, "Dan, I just found out Linda is cheating on me. I think it's someone from her office and it's been going on for months. I need to know who it is. Dan was shocked. Linda would never do that. There must be some mistake. Jim replied, there's no mistake. I have proof. I just need to find out who she's with. Dan tried to reassure him. We're a small company, Jim. I know most of the people there and sure there's some flirting but nothing serious. I have a couple of contacts who always know what's going on. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. It's hard to believe this about Linda, Dan added. Jim sighed. Not as hard as it is for me. The next few days were terrible for Jim. He wanted to confront Linda and ask why, but he realized it wouldn't matter. Their sex life was okay. Twice a week, which Jim thought was good for a couple with 2 kids. Linda never brought up anything new to try in bed. And she still refused to do the things Jim had asked for. So nothing had really changed. The only thing that came to mind was that whenever Linda came home from her monthly seminars, they never had sex that evening. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But now he was searching for anything unusual. The seminars were always held on Friday afternoons at a hotel and lasted about 2 hours. Afterward, many of the employees would skip dinner and head to happy hour at the bar. On those nights, Jim would take the kids out for a bite or stop by his parents' house for dinner. He wouldn't see Linda until around 8 p.m., the time she usually got home. Now he questioned everything in their marriage, trying to figure out why Linda had started cheating on him. On Friday morning, Dan called. If she's cheating with someone at work, it's probably with a new guy named David Collins. He joined us last year. There's talk that they've had lunch together a few times and that they've been seen dancing during happy hour, Dan told Jim. I know that's not exactly what you were hoping for, but it's all I could find out. I hope you two can sort this out. Thanks for the info, but I don't think that's likely, Jim replied. Jim called the detective and gave him the name Dan had mentioned. Then closed up shop and went home. How could Jim act like a loving husband when all he wanted was to kick her out and live alone? That weekend, he and Linda went through their usual family routine. Yard work, the kids' soccer practice, and their Sunday barbecue with the neighbors. Linda wanted to be close on Saturday night, but Jim said his stomach was upset, turned away and went to sleep. He had no plans of being with her again after discovering the truth. Jim was relieved when Monday came. Work was his escape, where he could relax and start making plans. The last thing left was to finish the divorce paperwork. He had already picked a lawyer and paid the fee. They decided on a no-fault divorce, asking for a 50-50 split of their assets with no alimony. Jim also wanted custody of their 2 daughters. If Linda didn't agree, he would change the grounds for divorce to adultery and show proof of her affair to everyone who knew her. He knew Linda would be furious when she got the papers, so he had already arranged for a restraining order. Linda could call the girls, but couldn't come within 75 meters of the house. By Tuesday, the private detective had collected evidence, including hotel receipts from Linda's seminars, all in David's name. The detective also had photos of Linda and her lover walking hand in hand into a room and kissing in the hallway. Jim didn't want to see the photos. He told the detective to put everything in a manila envelope and drop it off at his office. He thanked the detective for the quick work and said the check would be mailed by Tuesday. By Friday, everything was set. The neighbors had agreed to watch the kids for the weekend. Both moving crews were scheduled. The locksmith was supposed to finish the work by 2 p.m. Lastly, all the paperwork was to be finalized on Monday and delivered to Linda on Tuesday afternoon. Linda has no idea what's coming, Jim thought to himself, and he hoped it would stay that way. Linda's story: I was sitting at the kitchen table, feeling sorry for myself when the movers arrived at the door. I told them to wait until Jim got back, but when the lead mover handed me an envelope, I saw what was inside and immediately knew Jim had found out everything. In the envelope was a copy of the pregnancy test I had taken at the clinic. At the time, I had initially thought I had the flu like everyone else, but the feeling just wouldn't go away. I didn't have any body aches, I just felt a little off. One morning, Carol jokingly said, that was when the thought first crossed my mind that she might be right. When David started at our office, I had just turned 30 and was beginning to feel like an old married woman. I helped him settle in, and he was always such a pleasant young man. Smelled great and all that. David really did look good. Even though he was 5 years younger, we discovered that we liked the same music and Mexican food was both of our favorites. Soon we started going to the local Mexican restaurant for lunch together and meeting for drinks after our seminars. One Friday night after a team-building seminar, music was playing and David asked me to dance. We danced to 2 fast songs and then the third was a slow song. I hadn't slowed danced with anyone since I got married, but with David it felt so easy. We moved across the dance floor smoothly, and when the song ended we went back to our group. I felt warm and comfortable in his arms, and I didn't want the music to stop. After a couple of drinks, I decided it was best to head home. That night I almost jumped on Jim. No, I didn't do anything crazy. I just really needed intimacy and a lot of it. I knew I should have stopped spending time with David, but I enjoyed being around him. Aside from dancing and a few lunches, I didn't think I had done anything wrong. At least that's what I told myself at the time. It was only on the fourth Friday that things started to get out of hand. Our department had won an award for having the best performance in the company for the month, and we each received a $100 bonus. Naturally, we went to the bar to celebrate. After 2 hours, only 4 of us were left. I had too much to drink, and told David that I needed to go to a restaurant and have some coffee before trying to drive home. He kindly offered to join me. On the way to get coffee, I suddenly stumbled and David caught me before I fell to the ground. As a result, one of his hands ended up around my waist, and the other was holding my chest. "Are you okay?" he asked, helping me back to my feet. I don't know what I was thinking. Instead of answering, I just looked into his eyes and kissed him on the lips. It took him by surprise, but within seconds he was kissing me back. It felt like hours had passed before I pulled away, blushing. "I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that," I told David. "Please forgive me." "Don't worry about it, Linda," he said with a smirk. "I'll just count it as a thank you for saving your life. Now let's get you that coffee," he said, leading me to the restaurant. The next week, I tried hard to stay away from David. I found other things to do during lunch and skipped happy hour on Friday. It was especially hard when I noticed I got flushed every time I thought about being in David's arms. Thinking about him was a mistake. 2 weeks later I decided to stay for happy hour. Jim wasn't supposed to be home until 8:30, so I planned to have dinner and drinks with a few coworkers. That evening, it seemed like everyone had a reason to leave early. By 6:30 it was just David and me left at the table. "How about we grab a bite to eat?" David suggested. Just then the music started and I asked David to dance with me. For some reason the band played 4 slow songs in a row, and we danced to every one of them. My heart was pounding as we glided across the floor. I was sweating profusely and I felt a rush of emotion being so close to him. How we ended up in the back seat of his car I have no idea. We did everything except the actual act. He brought me to the brink of ecstasy several times. First with his fingers, then with his mouth. Expressing my gratitude by ensuring he felt every bit of pleasure, down to the very last moment. It was almost 8 p.m. before we realized what time it was. After fixing my dress and hair, I kissed him one last time and headed to my car. I probably should have felt embarrassed, but for some reason I didn't. I was still on a high after experiencing intense moments of satisfaction multiple times. Honestly, I couldn't have done it without him. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt that much in one go. The guilt didn't hit me until I saw my husband and kids. Jim wanted to be intimate that night, but I couldn't even look at him, let alone be with him. After a long 45-minute shower, I slipped into bed and just cuddled with him for the rest of the night. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't stop. I was hooked. Now, David and I started meeting again during lunch. I couldn't wait to see him. A week later, he told me he had booked a room for Friday evening in case I wanted to spend some time alone with him after the seminar. We left the bar separately and met in the hallway near the room. "Are you sure you want to do this?" David asked. "I'm not sure, but let's get out of the hallway before someone sees us," I replied. We hadn't been in the room for more than 10 seconds before we were tearing each other's clothes off. David's touch sent waves of excitement through me, and by the time he got closer, I was already filled with anticipation. The intensity made me cry out, though I tried to muffle the sounds with a pillow. I couldn't help but think how skilled David was, wishing Jim had the same abilities. As things went on, the sensations became intense, and I needed a moment to catch my breath. But I stayed focused and tried to enjoy every second. Eventually, we both felt satisfied and shared a few light moments before quietly going our separate ways. I got home with 45 minutes to spare before Jim and the kids returned. David and I met up twice more before I started feeling unwell, which I initially thought was just the flu. When Carol joked about me being pregnant, I panicked and went to the doctor. I didn't want to believe the results when they confirmed I was pregnant. David had always used condoms and Jim had been infertile since his surgery. Looking at the test results, I realized I had been caught in more ways than one. And so, Linda sat in the kitchen, waiting for Jim to come home. She had been preparing herself to break the news to him. That's when her world came crashing down. Her marriage was over. In the aftermath, it became clear that Jim wanted to get his pound of flesh from both of them. He wanted David out of town, never to see his face again. And he wanted Linda to suffer for what she had done to their happy family. His unmarried sister Donna was moving into their house to help him with the 2 girls. For heaven's sake, what did he even know about raising daughters and dealing with women's issues? His parents were always there to support him, and he knew it wouldn't be easy, but they would all get through it. On Sunday evening, Jim sat the girls down next to Donna and explained that he and their mom were having some problems, and that Aunt Donna would be staying with them for a while. Jim told them they could see their mom whenever they wanted, but she wouldn't be living with them anymore. They all cried and hugged, but a big bowl of ice cream helped soften the bad news. By Tuesday, Linda had been served, and though she called my cell about 20 times, I had nothing left to say to her. When she called the house, Donna answered. My sister also tried to explain that it was over, but Linda wasn't listening. I had canceled all our joint credit cards, removed her from my insurance and retirement account, and did everything else necessary during a divorce. Still, on Wednesday I let her see the kids. Donna took the girls to meet their mom at my parents' house, and stayed there until Linda left. I didn't see Linda again until we all met with the lawyers at their office. Linda's lawyer started making demands one after another. When he asked for full custody of the children for Linda, I stood up and said I was leaving. We're just getting started. Where are you going? He asked, surprised. I'll say this only once, I replied quietly. The terms are as they are. Linda can see the kids whenever she wants, but I will have physical custody. She's carrying someone else's child, and my kids will not see the birth of her illegitimate baby. If you fight me on this or anything else, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of woman my soon-to-be ex-wife is. Think carefully before you speak again. We took a short break to calm down. When we came back, Linda agreed to all my terms and the papers were signed. I'm truly sorry, Jim. I don't know why this happened. I've always loved only you, my now ex-wife cried. I guess not enough, I replied. As I was leaving, I turned to Linda. Since you both got so mixed up during that team-building seminar, maybe you can get compensation from the company for a workplace injury. I smirked and walked out. For the last time, second story. I'm a college student who agreed to attend college with my boyfriend, but he had to go abroad for a while to get in. To clarify, my boyfriend is very strongly against cheating and drinking. He's never made me feel insecure and has been amazing, but he does have a past before me. After a week abroad, he called me crying and confessed that he was with a group of 10 guys and was pressured into drinking a lot, even though he usually only drinks a little. He ended up drinking over 7 shots of hard liquor. A girl lent him something, and when he went to return it, she invited him into her and her roommate's dorm. He told her multiple times that he had a girlfriend and didn't know who she was. She then talked about her problems and made him feel guilty. Under the influence of alcohol, he barely remembers what happened next. When he asked her about it 2 days later, she said that they cuddled and kissed a bit, and that he passed out on her couch. He said she made the first move, which I find confusing because if he was too drunk to remember, how could he know if she was flirting with him? He's now starting to remember bits of that night 3 days later. I'm really unsure whether to try to fix this relationship or move on. I love him and we spend every day together, but I don't know if I'm seeing the situation clearly.